Hello. So, the topic of discussion today will be for philosophy and sports. Now, I want to start off by saying that in philosophy and sports, there can be a lot of things tied to the per se start of how one can easily adapt a certain philosophy to their what do you call it, to their training regimen, to the way they play, how their mentality is formed, etc. So, in that being said, right, I will use myself as reference. So, I played baseball at a very high level. I made it to collegiate D2 baseball for 16, 17 years of my life. I played baseball, right? I mean, I played other sports here and there, but consistently, the one sport that I played the most was baseball. Anyways, so going back to my point, in philosophy, I can tie it to a lot of philosophy to sports because of what sports has taught me, and it's been very philosophical because of the life lessons that I've learned through one, as in such. Baseball, you fail a lot. A good batting average in baseball, if you look at a percentage, it goes from 0, 0, 0 to 1,000, right? If you're hitting, if you get, let me put it to you like this: if you get one hit a game, that's 1,000, right? And that's the only hit you get for the game. Game two comes along, right? You get two hits, and you get 2 for 2, right? Etc. But the point that I'm making is that in baseball, when you are hitting, you are not gonna always get the best hit, the best home run, whatever. You're never gonna get it, and that is a big testament to life because, yes, there's a lot of effort that you will put into something, but on the same token, you will never be fully able to get it. Correct? Now, unless you put in the hard work, you consistently show up to the plate, and you practice your swing, you practice how to track pitches, etc. You're constantly putting in the work. Eventually, you will get that very above average batting average, which is in baseball a 300 or above. Excuse me, a 300% batting average or above is phenomenal in baseball at the professional level. So I digress. So a lot goes into that, right? The way that you hit, the way that your mentality is when you're hitting, how you hit, and your mentality affects everything in terms of hitting. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I had a death in the family. It happens to us all, right? Death is unfortunately natural, and it's a philosophical, take on life. But anyways, so if I had a death in the family, and there's a saying in baseball, leave your personal life off the field. When you come on the field, this is it. This is what you're dealing with right now at the moment. So that teaches you how to face everyday challenges from moment to moment, day by day, right? Everybody said the saying, take it day by day, right? One step at a time. That's exactly what's being applied here. Because if I let my mentality of my family member dying affect my performance, and let's say if you're in high school, let's say it's a state game, right? And this gets your team to win to states, correct? It's a very big thing for a lot of schools, and it's very good for the athlete themselves when they're able to perform and get themselves to a high enough notoriety to then be noticed by, let's say, college scouts, etc. To my point, if I allow, right, instead of taking things day by day, right, and learning how to separate loss and emotion, or logic and emotion, right, I can look at it philosophically and say, okay, how am I going to not let something that has been ailing me in my life affect me, and then translate to what I need to do for work, etc., life, it's right. Let's use a more pertinent example. Let's say you're a father, or you have a family and you need to provide for your children, but you had the worst day at work. You come home and your kids want to play with you, but you just, you had a terrible day. You don't want to see anybody, you don't want to talk to anybody, but then you remember, even though I had a bad day, my kids haven't seen me all day and they're very small. So you want to give them the attention and love that they deserve and that you want to give, because it's a loving sense. So there's a lot of things that can be taken into play. So going back to my point, when you're hitting as a baseball player, your mentality is everything. There's a phrase in baseball, it's probably fluctuated between the two, but when I was playing, it was 80% mental, 20% physical. But in my opinion, it's more 90% mental and 20% physical. Because if in the case of, let's say, you can be the strongest athlete ever, but your mentality is never there when you're hitting, you will not be a phenomenal baseball hitter. Plain and simple. Because a pitcher that can be less athletic than you and throw slower than, let's say, you're normally facing 90 plus and up, right? You're not going to achieve that high enough level of hitting, even though you have all of the physical attributes of the best baseball player out there. You get what I'm saying? So, I digress. Philosophy incorporates into sports because you need to be mentally prepared and mentally able to go and do the things necessary to then proceed on to the next step, right? So the next step in this case with the baseball example would be, okay, my death in the family, right? I'm not going to let it affect my mentality. I'm still going to go up to the plate, ready to hit, ready to play, and I'm going to use my emotions that I previously attained from the death in my family to then bolster and boost my physical performance. So I'm going to let that fuel me instead of hinder me. And that's another aspect of philosophy. Because if we allow our circumstances to dictate how we think, how we feel, how we react, everything and anything, it just dictates us. We become subject and slave to that. Versus if you learn how to get through that pain, you will be in return rewarded on the other side. Now, to continue to shape on that, right? A good example I will use is the martial artist Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee was a very, renowned martial artist. He made his name for himself in America, being from Chinese descent. He brought Kung Fu over. Pretty much was the, pioneer for that. But, to my point, Bruce Lee adopted his own philosophy, right? Jeet Kune Do, the arts of no art, right? To basically make it less, to make it less annoying. Excuse my dog. Anyways, to make. Sorry. To make where was I going with this? To continue with my thought, in martial arts, right? If you have one set of ways in terms of fighting, your fighter can predict and read your moves if they're at that high enough level, correct? It doesn't matter about skill or athleticism or strength. If you know what's coming and you expect what's coming as a martial artist, you can, 9 times out of 10 dodge it. Now, the art of no art is a philosophy as well for Bruce Lee because he was big on figuring out how to be formless and be shapeless. Like his most famous quote, flow like water. Let it flow like water. But anyway, to my point. In Bruce Lee's case, he not only pioneered a certain style of martial arts, basically allowed the martial arts world to expand as much as it did. Because Jeet Kune Do, right, which is the name, right, the art of no art, that allows one to basically create their own fighting style. Because if, let's say, you are a Muay Thai martial artist and I'm a karate martial artist, if I don't utilize certain trainings from other, branches, I'm not gonna probably win if you have, let's say, a better repertoire of moves that you can do on me, or you have better strength training, or this, or whatever. At the end of the day, it's not what you can take and what advantage you have, but it's utilizing what you've been given and making the most of it. Again, that is also an advantage of itself. Now, to continue and to relate that to the sports and philosophy topic, if you see in a martial art, it requires discipline, it requires mental fortitude, and it requires how you shape yourself. in philosophy, there's various aspects that relate to that. If you can't be philosophically aware of, let's say, your how your fighting form is, because I'm talking about martial arts, right? But your mentality is also in the gutter, where as in you, a fighter, cannot perform correctly because you're just mentally not there. So you're allowing yourself and the philosophy that you stand by as a martial artist to be essentially taken down. So that's not good, because obviously in fights it's usually life or death situations, correct? But on the same token, you can sit there and utilize the philosophies that you've learned and allow yourself to not get overtaken by whatever might be mentally blocking you or trying to obstruct you from achieving your goal. I'll wrap it up with this. Also, in my pursuit of being a firefighter, there are various, things and philosophies that, as a firefighter, you need to try to stand by. So, one philosophy is, never leave a man behind. Never go in a fire by yourself, because once you do, one, you're at risk for your own life. Two, you just put your team at risk. If you ever do something by yourself, and it wasn't, let's say, double checked by your captain or your lieutenant or whatever higher ranking individual is in your crew, you just put your life and everybody's life that you have to save in danger, right? So why do I say this? Because if you bring in the philosophy as we are a team, we work as a team, we win as a team, we lose as a team, that is the essential building block for what holds up fire crews, especially when attacking a firehouse. Especially when attacking a house on fire, because you're also going into an unknown area. Like, yes, okay, let's say you lived in South Florida your whole life, but you're a firefighter that works in Homestead and you live in Delray. What are you gonna do? You're not gonna know what houses in Homestead look like unless you've lived there, right? You're going into it blind. So you need to go back to what you've learned, because if you don't, what else is to rely on? You're in a dark place that has fire, that you can't see anything, you can't hear anything, you can't even hear your own voice. You have to shout. So at the end of the day, it falls back on your training and the philosophy of said training that is instilled by others, right? As in keeping up your physical shape, making sure you get enough sleep, recovery, etc. And excuse me. Oh, stuck sneeze. Excuse me. So to finish and close off my point for my final project, sports and philosophy have taught me a lot of things, and in all honesty, it wouldn't have made me the man that I am today unless I went through all of these life lessons, because I've learned the hard way how to work, and how to struggle, and that has genuinely made me a better person. And that in it of itself is a philosophy, because one cannot know what winning is or losing for that if not struggling. So thank you for your time. I hope everybody, Professor, I hope you have a good holiday and Christmas or whatever you celebrate. But thank you for the class. I appreciate it. Have a good day.